Hello, everyone. I'm the storyteller, and I'm here to help you today. I know you use this video to fall asleep, so before that, like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, where are you from? And what time are you watching now? Get comfortable and relax. The farm on Black Hollow Road. When Jenna Reeves first saw the farmhouse on Black Hollow Road, it felt like fate. She was a struggling writer, desperate to escape the suffocating chaos of the city and her string of unfinished novels. The ad for the rental had promised peace, quiet, and inspiration. And the low price sealed the deal. The house stood alone, surrounded by endless fields that seemed to stretch into oblivion. A thick row of trees bordered the property, their branches tangled like fingers gripping the sky. It was a place that felt untouched by time, eerily serene, yet faintly off. Jenna ignored the uneasy feeling that crept up her spine as she parked her car in the gravel driveway. She had bigger things to worry about. Her dwindling bank account, the looming deadline for her next book, and the gnawing fear that her best writing days were behind her. The landlord, a wiry man named Mr. Hemlock, handed her the keys with a stiff smile. "The place has its quirks," he said, his voice gravelly. "But you'll get used to it. The land's got history." "History?" Jenna asked, raising an eyebrow. He shrugged, avoiding her gaze. "Folks around here tell stories, superstitions mostly. You know how small towns are." Jenna didn't press him. She didn't believe in ghosts or curses, just deadlines and rent payments. The whispers begin. The first few days were blissfully quiet. Jenna set up her laptop on the kitchen table and spent her mornings staring at the blank screen, her afternoons wandering the property in search of inspiration. The fields were mesmerizing. The tall grass swayed gently, even when there wasn't a breeze, and she could swear she heard faint whispers in the rustling. "Just the wind," she muttered, shaking off the thought. But as the days passed, the whispers grew louder. At first, they were indistinct, like the murmurs of a distant conversation. Then they became clearer. Jenna, she froze the first time she heard her name, her heart hammering in her chest. She spun around, expecting to see someone standing behind her. But the field was empty. Her logical mind tried to explain it away. She was alone, overstressed, maybe even hallucinating. But deep down, she knew something was wrong. The farm's dark history. Determined to distract herself, Jenna decided to dig into the history of the farm. She drove to the local library, where a kindly old librarian helped her find records about the property. "It's an odd place," the librarian said, her voice low. "The soil there, it's different. Rich, but in a strange way. Folks used to say it was cursed." "Cursed?" Jenna asked, leaning forward. The librarian hesitated, then handed Jenna an old newspaper clipping. The headline read, "Blood Ritual on Black Hollow Farm." Jenna's stomach tightened as she skimmed the article. It told of a family that had lived on the farm a century ago. Desperate for prosperity, they turned to dark rituals. One night, during the harvest moon, they'd spilled blood into the soil. Animal blood. Maybe human. No one knew for sure. The crops flourished afterward, but the family's luck soured. They went mad, one by one, until the farm was abandoned. The soil remembers, the librarian said quietly. Jenna laughed nervously, brushing it off as folklore. But the seed of fear had been planted. The shifting fields. Back at the farmhouse, the whispers grew louder, more insistent. They weren't just in the fields anymore. They were in the walls, the floors, the air. Jenna started having nightmares. In one, she stood in the middle of the field, unable to move as the grass wrapped around her ankles and pulled her down into the earth. In another, she was writing at her desk when a shadowy figure appeared behind her, its hand resting on her shoulder. When she woke, the feeling of its grip lingered. One night, unable to sleep, Jenna grabbed a flashlight and stepped outside. The moon hung low and heavy, casting an eerie glow over the fields. The grass wasn't swaying gently anymore. It writhed, undulating like something alive. Jenna's breath hitched as she realized the whispers weren't carried on the wind. They were coming from the soil itself. "Help us," they said. "Set us free." She stumbled back toward the house, her flashlight beam flickering. That's when she saw it. A dark stain in the field, like the earth itself was bleeding. The Ritual Reborn. Terrified but compelled, Jenna returned to the library the next day and searched for anything she could find about breaking the curse. She found an old journal written by a local preacher who had tried to cleanse the land decades ago. He'd failed, but his notes described a ritual, a way to return the blood to the earth and purify the soil. The instructions were vague, but Jenna felt she had no choice. She gathered the items listed in the journal: a bowl, a knife, and an offering of her own blood. That night, under the harvest moon, she ventured into the field. The whispers were deafening now, a cacophony of voices pleading, weeping, screaming. She knelt on the blood-stained earth, trembling as she cut her palm and let her blood drip into the bowl. "I return what was taken," she whispered, reciting the words from the journal. "I free you from this place." The ground beneath her began to quake. The whispers turned to screams, then to silence. The fields stilled. The air felt lighter, cleaner. For the first time since she'd arrived, Jenna felt like she could breathe. The aftermath. The next morning, the fields looked normal. The grass was just grass, swaying gently in the breeze. The whispers were gone. Jenna packed her things and left the farmhouse that afternoon, not bothering to tell Mr. Hemlock. Some stories, she decided, were better left untold. But as she drove away, she glanced in the rearview mirror and saw the fields shifting again, just slightly, as if waving goodbye. Somehow, she knew the farm wasn't done with its stories or its sacrifices. Jenna didn't stop driving until she was miles away from Black Hollow Road, the farmhouse shrinking into the distance like a bad dream she was finally waking from. But the sense of relief didn't last. That night, in the small motel where she stayed, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Shadows lingered longer than they should, and every creak of the floor made her jump. She told herself it was paranoia, the aftermath of stress and sleepless nights. But when she closed her laptop to head to bed, she saw something on the screen that hadn't been there before. The words, "Help us," were faintly typed at the bottom of her unfinished manuscript. Jenna stared at the screen, her heart pounding. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard, but she didn't dare touch it. Suddenly, the power flickered, and the room plunged into darkness. She fumbled for her phone, its weak glow barely enough to light the space around her. In the faint light, she saw the reflection of something standing in the mirror across the room. Something that wasn't her. A shadow, tall and shapeless, its presence sending a chill through the air. Before she could scream, the whispers returned. "Jenna, you didn't free us." The voice wasn't pleading anymore. It was angry. Her blood ran cold as she realized the truth. She hadn't broken the curse. She'd only stirred it up. Whatever was trapped in the soil wasn't done with her. The motel room grew colder, the whispers closing in until they filled her head, louder and louder, drowning out her thoughts. The next morning, Jenna's car was found abandoned on the side of the highway. The driver's seat covered in dirt. There was no sign of Jenna. The farmhouse on Black Hollow Road remains empty now, though locals say the fields have grown unnaturally green. And at night, when the wind blows just right, some claim they can hear a voice in the rustling grass. It's faint, but unmistakable. "Help me." No one dares to answer. The end